Was it 4 hours you've had so far? Everybody got any matchsticks? I'll tell you what, I'll try and keep it light, because I don't want to see a few lids go down now. Mind you, you haven't had any wine. Listen to Ruth Lee. She's wonderful. She is spot on the money. And I'm absolutely delighted to say that I'm not going to overlap with her, hardly at all, which is quite nice. I was thinking, oh no, she's going to say all the things that I want to say. She didn't. Much better. You got some content there. I've absolutely no idea. I suppose I should start this properly, shouldn't he? My lord. Oh no, he's gone, isn't he? Ladies and gentlemen, I've absolutely no idea why I was asked by Luke Springthorpe to address such an august gathering as has been assembled here. I'm truly humbled by talking to members of the Conservative Progress team after such a distinguished list of brilliant speakers. I suspect that if Luke had known what a dreadful orator I was, I think he'd have thought twice about asking me. A few years ago, my beloved wife, she just looked at me after one of these things, said, "You are awful." And she said, "I have arranged for you," do you remember the Liverbirds? Well, she said, "I've arranged for you to meet Polly James." She was the one with the popper eyes and the blonde hair. She now earns £800 an hour teaching chief executives at Brunswick how to give a speech. So I said, "It's a bit out of my league." She said, "I've done a deal for you. It's your birthday present. I just bugger off and go and do it." So I went to see her, and she said, "Show me a speech." So I gave her the speech. She said, "That's all right." So she said, "The rostrum's up there." So up I went. And I went, "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "Stop, stop, stop." I said, "I haven't started." She said, that's the problem." She said, "You've killed it stone dead. The content's nothing to do with it, it's the delivery." He said, "People have heard you on 5 Live, Radio 4. They think you've got this dark, rich voice, that you're tall, dark, and good looking." He said, "They need to adjust to the fact that you're squat, fat, and ugly." Anyway, the theme of my short address is based around this country's decision to serve 2 years' notice to leave the European Union. From the City of London's perspective, no later than March 2019. I shall attempt to deal with some of the ramifications, fears, concerns, and general uncertainty that will manifest themselves in the next 24 months. What's become very clear to me is the coming together as a nation is not happening. The people are some way from being united by putting their shoulder to the wheel and making Brexit work. What is disturbing is the refusal by Remain to accept the democratic process. I fear that such distinguished big beasts as our lovely Ken Clarke and Lord Heseltine, as well as the many divergent political opinions from Tony Blair, Lord Mandelson, Nick Clegg and little Timmy Farron, have failed to grasp the nettle, and that is to say that the majority of the public have made an unambiguous statement that they've had enough and are insistent on change. One way of expressing their disenchantment is through their desire to leave the European Union. But was only part of the reason. Brexit for them was a platform for people to reject the establishment's domination of the political scene. Every supporter of Remain has the right to object, protest, make constructive comments. That is the democratic process. But they do not have the right to make mendaciously difficult, sabotaging efforts that lead to subversive activity. That is not fair. David Cameron is crystal clear, and that's about all he was clear about Brexit, that there would be one vote, in or out. The great thing is that had he come back with something in his hand resembling Neville Chamberlain, we might have stood half a chance, but it was like a busted flush, a piece of useless paper with nothing on it at all. And that's why I'm delighted we're here today. The European Union, ladies and gentlemen, as Ruth alluded to, is a busted flush. It is the only continent in the world where there's no really sustained growth. You will have read in the last couple of days that things are a little bit better than they have been. But we're still talking 1.6, 1.8. We're not talking about selecting another gear that some of these other continents have. And I think that's particularly important. One thing I'd like to say is that I've left Sir John Major out of that criticism there because he is obviously very concerned, but he has made it clear that he will not stop the democratic process, and I think that's very important. It's a big difference. There is considerable confusion between the UKIP stance, which frankly has been visceral, acrid, and verging on thoroughly unpleasant. I accept it would be folly for me not to accept that there is an immigration issue that needs to be dealt with. And I thought Tim Loudon did a fantastic job this morning of putting some meat on the bone. Most level-headed people just want the UK to control their own destiny and expand trade on a free basis, whilst monitoring immigration cautiously, but without throwing the baby out with the bathwater. UKIP has not been gracious in victory, nor has the party shown a scrap of humility. Good immigration, in my humble opinion, is great for the UK, whilst it contributes to growth. It all started to go pear-shaped in 2001, when Lord Blunkett allowed 2 million people to come into this country unaccounted for, with the total support of Tony Blair. And I think that was a mistake. Not the fact that 2 million people came to the country. If they're good and they contribute, that is brilliant. It's when they're in here and we don't know where they are, what they're doing, whether they're paying any tax, whether they're causing issues or problems. And I think that's a very, very important thing. Notwithstanding these facts, I'd like to make one comment about Prime Minister May, who said granting permission for the 3 million European nationals to remain in the country is a negotiating stance. Go on, take a gamble, let them stay, because they've got to stay, because we need them, and they're going to be good, and they're going to be great for the economy. And as Tim Loudon said, if we've got some bad eggs and the rest of them, they go under the new thing. And from now on, we monitor things, and I think it's incredibly important. I fear many supporters of UKIP have shown a distinct lack of tolerance towards those who, on the one hand, profoundly disagree with Brexit, and those of us here just wanting to make a contribution to the UK's economy. In the lead up to the European Union referendum in June 2016, the rhetoric on both sides was truly frightful. Leavers talked about massive payments that could be made to the National Health Service as a result of not contributing any more to an already bloated EU budget. Remainers, which included the government, the establishment, the Bank of England, were bordering on hysterical in forecasting an economic Marmageddon with mammoth unemployment. David Cameron's government adoption of Project Fear was ill-conceived and vehemently rejected. However, under our democratic process, the country voted to leave the European Union. I'm sure many feel aggrieved that they and the 48% of voters who've been duped. Those who voted to leave were equally mistreated by the acrid stench of fear promulgated by Remain. I fear that the majority of the electorate must now be respected. Sabotage must cease forthwith. Michael Gove rather disparagingly expressed quite a widely held view that the public was fed up with experts. I knew what he meant, but I suspect he was just referring to the coterie of official bodies, the OECD, the IMF, the Treasury, the Bank of England, who joined forces to destroy the dream with outrageously inaccurate forecasts about the UK's economy post-Brexit, recession and a sharp upturn in unemployment. Even, as Ruth said, even Andy Haldane said they were way over the top. But in Andy Haldane's part defence, which I'm sure Ruth will not like, he said this was not only my findings. He said I took a stall right across the whole of the Bank of England and the whole of the Treasury, and they were united in their thoughts. I remain steadfast in the view that upon being granted our decree absolute from the EU, we will start to conclude deals with many countries we've been frustrated in being unable to do so in the past. Moreover, by March 2019, the political landscape could have changed immeasurably across the European Union. There are a number of things that we all know are going to be a problem. Wilders in Holland, Le Pen in Paris. Who'd bet against Schulz beating Angela Merkel in October? Who would bet against Greece collapsing because they can't fund themselves anymore? Italy's a volcano waiting to explode. And these things all give me the courage that if we're going to see the arrogance of Jean-Claude Juncker, don't worry about it, because there are other things that are going to push the forces of the European Union to give due consideration to sensible negotiations. As for the city, there's been so much negative comment about Brexit. In my humble opinion, there's been a surfeit of unnecessary despair, much of it promulgated from the likes of Mark Boliat of the City of London Corporation, who's been the prophet of doom, running around, wringing his hands. I don't share his views, not at all. However, we are in the UK should be under no illusions at all that when it comes to negotiating with the European Commission, the conversations will be tough and uncompromising. Michel Barnier, to whom Ruth referred to so affectionately, is very, very experienced and will be united and extremely well drilled. Above all else, their mandate will initially be to protect the European Union from breaking up with damage limitation in the forefront of their minds. And I have been told, which worries me, that they would rather surrender part of their own growth than give any ground to the United Kingdom, which is a very worrying and incredibly stupid stance. So patience and civility will be the name of the game. And I'm sure that David Davis, just to add a little bit more meat to the bone to what Ruth said, I think he eats nails for breakfast and spits rust out, and I think he's brilliant. He's got that lovely Gioconda smile that says it all. And then also backing him up, the head of the civil service, Ollie Robbins, no flies on him. And also Sir Tim Barrow comes, very well recommended. And their negotiating colleagues, I'm certainly very, very well aware of the likelihood of the possibility of meeting a brick wall. My comments are not meant to be inflammatory in any way, quite the reverse. However, we've been warned what to expect. Conversely, Daniel Hodgson, the former CEO of Life, this is the London International Financial Futures Exchange, and a leading light in the City of London's Financial Services Negotiating Forum. They've been having lots of conversations in the City of London about what if not, and what happens, and how are we going to deal with this. And it's been extremely enlightening, and it's been a very worthwhile thing. Now that Brexit is a reality rather more than it had been viewed a few months ago, the result in this paper, which he's written as well, was largely as expected, which would explain why, if the reports are to be believed, a more pragmatic and conciliatory approach from business sectors, hence my question to the panel here about we need businesses, we need banks, we need companies to be more involved in the negotiations rather than leave it to the politicians, which, nothing against politicians, but I think there's the point here that if there is a solidarity amongst each sector and there's the reciprocity on the other side of the channel, it may be to everybody's benefit. Mr. Hodgson said that when negotiating equivalences and cross-border access between the UK and the EU is important, and that UK negotiations do not commit a regulatory regime that would restrict competitiveness. I think that's very important, or limit access to other markets. These observations and comments rather conflict with the opinions I've proffered earlier in this address. So it sounds as if at a very senior level, the conciliatory tone is not that apparent. But in terms of the financial sector, there seems to be some basis for discussion, which Ruth alluded to over the passporting. Now, this is something that you, looking at me, none of you know me, will think is absolute, complete arrogance, and I don't care. I've been in the City of London now for, hate to say it to you, 54 years. And I have seen the early, what they call initial public offerings in the Times and the Financial Times and the Telegraph, which were full-page things, one a day. And there's been no centre in the entire universe that has been as good at financing foreign exchange, financing trade, or raising capital. London is, trust me, ladies and gentlemen, preeminent. There's no question about that. Followed, of course, in the 70s by the euro-dollar market camping down in London. By the end of 1970s, there were 300 trading banks in London. Then the glorious Lady Thatcher, God rest her soul, introduced the abolition of exchange control in 1980. That was much bigger than Big Bang. Some of you, not as stooped in age as I am, but remember that the most we were ever allowed to take abroad was 50 quid. 25. Well, all right, 25. Well, there you are, you're quite right. Now, what Mrs. Thatcher did at the stroke of a pen said, London is open for business. Wallop! And it was amazing. This fact gave all those American banks like Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers and JP Morgan and all these other people to come to London to sell their goods and chattels. It wasn't Big Bang itself, which Cecil Parkinson had to put in to stop the coterie of people colluding over paying the same brokerage. It was the fact is, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. London is preeminent. Even New York admits it, even Tokyo admits it. London is preeminent. Fact. Whatever happens is that if Jamie Dimon wants to take his few hundred people to Paris, ta-da, see ya. And if Lloyd Bankfine wants to do the same to Frankfurt, toodle-pip, see you later. Off you go, because I tell you what, folks, you're all going to come back, because this is where it's at. It's as simple as that. How can Frankfurt, with a population, a Mickey Mouse delightful town like Frankfurt, with 750,000 people, possibly think that it could compete with London, who've got 12.5 million people and 70 years of infrastructure? God, it would take them a decade to even be competitive with London. Dream on, anybody who thinks of that. Dublin, no chance. They haven't got the money to be able to build the infrastructure that's required to take these. Paris, they speak the French. No good. Because we need. Taxation's hopeless, it's political dynamite. Why would people send more than a few hundred people there? It's not going to happen, ladies and gentlemen. Be strong, be of a good courage. The financial sector delivers to the Treasury £70 billion a year. If you think my mates, even though 97% of them are Remainers, no bottle, never mind, but they are going to deliver 1 ounce of our sovereignty in the financial markets to the rest of Europe with a hell of a fight, you're wrong. It's not going to happen. I've nearly finished, don't worry. I just really want to finish off by saying that the other thing that we've got going for us in the City of London is, and this is a serious comment, London is the centre of the time zone. And I don't think, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of you, if you don't work in it, know how important that is. Because it means you get the orders from the Far East, you deliver them all in Europe at our own time, and then New York comes in later. It's absolutely fundamental. English, like it or not, is the international language of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, in London, we have the best legal system in the world, we have the best accountancy system in the world, we potentially have the best regulatory situation in the world, and that is why, at the end of the day, if people think that we are going to surrender more than, say, 10 to 15% initially, it's not going to happen. I don't know if any of you have ever been to the Hind's Head at Bray. It's the most wonderful old country pub, and there's a lovely thing at the top of the door, a saying, "Fear knocked at the door, faith answered, no one was there." Thank you very much indeed.